And now I play the Is Everything Working game. Okay. Oh, Nikes. My phone. Alrighty, is everything working? Everything working? Let's see. Sounds like it. Colin Anderson, yo, Scott. Hail, traveler, and well met. How's it going, everyone? Welcome. Welcome. Okay. Conrad, howdy. Kitsune, Roger. Roger. You know what the sad duality of the Clone Wars is? You had the robots and you had the clones, and in essence, they were just doing the same things. So sad. Lucas, hello. Poo poo banana sweet haircut, bro. Thank you. This is what I like to call bedhead. Alex, what is the next one shot you gonna run? So Alex, I am planning. So I was planning on doing it next week. However, I'm getting a tooth pulled out. So what I'm gonna be doing is the week after that, I'm gonna be running a week long of games. I was literally gonna use this to make the announcement. But it'll be all posted up. I'm going to be running a week long of games. Basically, I'm going to be running carnival themed adventures. So it's going to be split between these two here. So I'm going to be running the Wild Beyond the Witchlight. I'm going to be running just, quick, fun, little adventures here, there, and everywhere. And then I'll be running the Carnival of the Damned, which is a 0th level adventure where, you go to a carnival and things are totally not fine and fun. So I was going to make that announcement later. I'll have a big old thing about it. But yeah. May you live in interesting times. Thanks, Cosford. Hey, no fun. It's been too long. Hey, what's going, ADHD, D&D, ADHD and D. That's what it is. ADHD and D. It's been a while, yeah. I need to stream more. It's just I've been so busy with life and whatever. The SRD, what now, mortals? Yo, my favorite villain. Tooth pulling stink. Good luck to you on your healing. I'm a relatively good healer. It's just that I know that I won't be able to talk properly when I get the tooth pulled. So, yeah. I also just realized. There we go. Oh. So, something to remember is I'm really poor. Where all the cool YouTubers have actual green screens, I've got a green bed sheet. Where all the cool YouTubers have an O light, I literally have the regular lights in my room. So I'm not cool. So my setup is very much so crappy. LOL, the random droids were way more humanized than the random clones that they had in the show, not including Rex and the other non-extra clone troopers. Isn't that funny? Like, I think canonically that wasn't supposed to be that way. Like the droids actually have like a limited memory base kind of thing, where like they only have a few key functions or whatever, and they don't like that. Like you would never have a robot that just does dumb things, right? But yeah, the clones definitely, they are in essence people, but it's always an interesting question of like what happens when you raise a human from birth to be a soldier. Like they're obviously going to be way different than the average human being. My insurance only pulls teeth as well. Yay, poor people unite. Yeah, yes, poor people, let's unite. Your setup works, bro. No hate. Thank you, thank you. Hey, quality of brain over merch distractions anyway. There you go. At least you're out here. Old school, cool. Let's go. Palpatine made sure that bug race was never more. You know, honestly though, do you blame him? If there was a bunch of bugs, like I feel like human beings would do the same thing. I mean, have you watched Starship Troopers? Come on now. That's what humans do. We exterminate the bugs. Exterminate the bug menace. Oh, so yeah, I'm as I'm sure all of you are aware, on the social medias, on the Twitters and the YouTubes and the whatever else, the OGL has just absolutely been dominating the news feed of the not just D&D but also just the tabletop role playing game hobby as a whole. And a lot of my YouTube contemporaries, we're all in like little communities together, and we all talking about this, and it's not been a fun time. A lot of people are questioning their future with D&D because, this company, it looks like they can just pull the rug right out from under you and do all that fun jazz, which is not fun at all. But, it really sucks. And a lot of the other D&D YouTubers are questioning, like, oh, do I still continue to make D&D products? Do I still continue to, support Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro? That's a tough call. Because, quite frankly, if you make 2 videos, right? You make one video about generic whatever, and then you make one video about D&D, D&D is going to get more views. It's just more likely, right? So it's just a matter of, like, that safety net of D&D is just so good. And speaking of, I actually just got a message by one of those D&D YouTubers. Go figure. Appreciated your lighthearted video where you reviewed YouTuber OGL thumbnails. Cheers for doing something different. That's the problem, right? Is, well, going back to the whole, one just common thing, one D&D is going to be better. If you make a video about being lighthearted and you make a video about hate and vitriol, guess which video is going to do better? The hated one. Right? Like, if I made 2 videos and the thumbnail was, D&D is good, and then I make another one and the thumbnail is, D&D is terrible, I promise you beyond a shadow of a doubt, the one that says D&D is terrible, that's going to do better. People are just attracted to passionate things, and it just unfortunately seems like in our human society that we can be more passionate about things we hate versus things we enjoy, which sucks. It really sucks. I'm not gonna lie. D&D, Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, etc. is gonna have a hard time of even making it right because the pitchforks are out. So what I will say, Kitsune, is right now the pitchforks are out. But we've seen this many, many times with many other different products of various, works, is that the hate bandwagon chugs along until they hop onto a new set of tracks. Eventually, something is going to happen somewhere, some way, somehow, and people are going to start focusing on hating that new thing. And then hating on that new thing. I promise you it's going to happen. Like, I don't know if it'll be like a YouTuber messing up or another company messing up or, whatever. I don't know. But at some point, the hate bandwagon is going to jump onto something else because, I think in like recent light here, we have Blizzard, right? Blizzard was the biggest stink ever, right? Like, of all the video game companies, like EA had their limelight or whatever, but Blizzard was like, oh my god, Blizzard's terrible, oh my gosh. And then, like, just flash forward a few months later and people are, playing the new expansions and buying up the new games, and people just don't care, right? So I imagine the same thing's going to happen here. Now, ultimately, Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro were hurt by this significantly because there were so many unsubscriptions from D&D Beyond, right? Like, they got hurt. They lost some money. They presumably lost hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on this. So, the money talks. And if the money continues to talk, then that'll be something. But unfortunately, just due to the nature of the tabletop role-playing game hobby, money doesn't typically move quickly. D&D Beyond subscriptions were the quickest and easiest way to track revenue gain, and we saw that they lost a bunch. But now we're going to see, are people going to continue to buy the new books when they come out? Because they've got a new, they got a lineup of books coming out, right? They've got the giant book, and they have a giant book, a set of adventures about, like, oh my gosh, I need to look up that picture again of their lineup, but a new adventure filled with, like, heist or whatever, or like thieving or whatever. They've got a new Phandalin adventure. They're going to do a new, like, another supplement book. So they're going to do a bunch of things. And if those sell, then it's going to be like this never happened, right? But if those don't sell, then absolutely, I imagine that Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro is going to turn around on some things. OSR is going to save the game, IMO. Pathfinder 2 is cool, but I'd rather go retro. Agree. So, ultimately, I prefer OSR versus modern. I personally prefer characters over character sheets. I personally prefer shorter combat versus longer combat. I personally prefer simplistic over complex, right? So that's just my, opinion, but obviously so many people like 5e and Pathfinder, so, we'll see. Do the one that catches attention, then wrap it up with positives. Talk about the thumbnails. Yeah, that's the whole thing of, like, if I make the video about D&D is terrible, and I'm like, oh, D&D is terrible because of X, Y, and Z, but here are some good things about it. That's how people do it, right? Like, that's how all of the D&D YouTube videos go. But the real thing to consider is, when it comes to making YouTube videos too, is you need to have a combination of a bunch of things that go together, right? You need a good thumbnail, you need a good title, and also, very importantly, is that first 30 seconds needs to grab people. Because if you get a good thumbnail and a good title, and then people click on your video and then click off, what that'll tell YouTube is that you are clickbaiting. And what that ultimately does is that will affect your future, clickability, not clickability rating, but like future dispersal, right? Because if you only do clickbait things and they do not get views, or if they do get views, it's only in the first couple of seconds, YouTube is not going to push your video out to other people. So a view time is incredibly important. So you need to stick with whatever your thumbnail and title is. It needs to be clear, concise. It needs to latch onto that. And also, very importantly, is that first 30 seconds needs to be gripping and compelling. And that's something I suck at as a content creator, but I need to work on that. I absolutely need to work on that. Oh boy. Oh me, oh my, goodness gracious, what a life. So, as I sit here and ponder my thoughts about the world and life and D&D and all things tabletop role-playing gamedom, I ask you all this. How are you guys doing? What's going on in your worlds? Is this OGL nonsense affecting you in regards to the games you're playing? Is it affecting your morale? Is it affecting your table's morale? I'm genuinely curious about that. Because, obviously, to the content creators, this is a big deal. But when you trickle it down all the way down to the consumer base, does this matter? Does this actually affect your tables? I want to know that. Went to my game last Sunday and not one person mentioned the Wizard Coast Nazis. It was surreal and got me thinking we're not in a worse spot than we thought. You know, that's honestly the thing, right? It is, it literally, you know, is this actually going down to the player base? Because, you know, basically we calculated it that supposedly, you know, there's like 40 million people that play D&D around the world, right? That's a decent amount of people. And when you look at the OGL fiasco numbers in regards of all the videos, you know, they're getting, you know, some of them are getting dozens, if not hundreds of thousands of views, which is decent. But is that a big dent? I don't know. And I certainly don't think so. Wizard of the Coast is going to try to own animated spells on VTT. So, Nox, that goes in with, basically, we suspect that Wizard of the Coast is going to try to basically kill other VTTs, meaning you have to go through their service, whatever it's going to be in the future. And through their service, they'll have that like subscription thing of like, oh, you know, you pay X month, you know, X dollars a month to get this service. And then, oh, if you pay, you know, you can pay like $1 here and there to get a skin for your character, you know, all that fun jazz. My players are too casual, so they don't know about the Ojo stuff at all. Yeah, I figured. I'll still be playing 5e with my group for the next few years. Currently, I'm trying to finish Strahd and Witchlight this year and have 2 or 3 books I want to run over the next few years. Yeah, and that's the honest thing is games take time, right? Unless you have a group that can play, you know, relatively quickly, relatively often, the adventure modules take time. There are already complaints to state AGs who do not cost we the people any money, and the AGs get paid to sue Wizard of the Coast. Woo-wee! Ooh-wee! I don't create content, but for me it does matter a lot. I use a lot of stuff from content creators. Curse of Strahd is made so much better by all the additions people like you and Lunch Break Heroes. Thank you, thank you. Good old Lunch Break, what a guy. Fun fact: I've actually worked for Lunch Break Heroes, not like at his real people job, but he had me do some freelance writing for him, and I did that. So cool dude. Yeah, it makes their product look more attractive. I'm wondering what happens after my current campaign ends. I use a paid DM, and I'm sure they have to run a campaign that is widely popular. But what system will be widely popular? So what I suspect is if players that are looking to play, you know, and they know about this OGL fiasco, I suspect a lot of people are either going to, 1, move to Pathfinder, 2, move to I'm saying like today, because in a few months' time we're gonna have all the 5e, you know, clones, but like today, you know, honestly, grim darkish, but Shadow of the Demon Lord is actually a good 5e clone right now. Like in fact, I think it's like one of the most solid 5e clones right now. But if like but for players that are looking for specifically a 5e like a game, then I definitely see Pathfinder, Shadow of the Demon Lord, and maybe I don't know really what else is like 5e like that equivalent. But if people are willing to like jump to new systems, there are tons and tons of fantastic systems, you know, tons, just absolute tons. So much drama in Wizards of the Coast. Are they trying to burn it all down? They're trying, Lorander. They are trying. Fun fact, ladies and gentlemen, I have 12,000... let me take a look here. I have 12,070 subs. And right here in the chat right now, I have subscriber number 1. Right here. Lorander. My day 1. Lorander was the first person ever to subscribe to my humble channel. The Beans. How do you feel about the new OGL giving Wizards of the Coast the ability to shut down anyone that makes content that they or Twitter Rage decide is offensive or triggering? So ultimately, so what it is like specifically the verbiage says, well, we deem offensive. Now, ultimately, what that means is if I don't like you, you're offensive, right? So, what basically that means is if they don't like you, and mind you, if it's not just the content, if they just don't like you as a content creator, then they can shut you down. And I find that is very scary. That means you basically have to go heel to toe on the line that Wizard of the Coast draws, and they can decide what to draw and when to draw it, right? Like they can decide that the flavor of the month is X, Y, or Z, and you have to adhere to that. And if you don't steer within those lines, you're screwed. It's not good. A lot of peeps are talking about Pathfinder. I think there's a Humble Bundle coming out in a couple of days with their stuff. There is, and I think there is a Humble Bundle filled with a bunch of Pathfinder stuff. But you can also play Pathfinder for free. There is a bunch of, you can get the core rules of Pathfinder for free. It's just that there is an obscene amount of books for Pathfinder, because fun fact, Pathfinder releases regular content far more frequently than Wizard of the Coast. Wizard of the Coast is actually incredibly slow when it comes to content creation. DMs are more dialed into the OGL fiasco than their players, but DM opinions drive their games. Personally, I'm looking into OSR stuff for the first time in 12 years of DMing. So what I'll say to that is, DM opinions drive their games. So what I'll say to that is, like, I personally am only going to run the games that I want to run, right? A while ago, I used to run games for people just because I felt like I needed to run those games for those people. And sometimes that wasn't the game that I wanted to run. But nowadays, I am truly in the belief that if I plant a flag in the ground and say, hey, I'm going to run this kind of game, then people will come to it, right? And then I will get the people that want to come to that game. So, props to you for running, your OSR stuff. I'm running OSR stuff for people, and I'm getting, some of my old groups have, like, faded away, and I'm getting new people in. That's fine, because I'm running the games that I want to run. Gratz Lorander, you're the OG, literally. He is. He's the day one. I might want to switch, but my players probably don't see any reason to move. We only played 3 of the modules, so we have enough material to keep us busy for years. True. And that's something that you got to contend with, because what I will say is, if you are okay with staying, then stay. But if you're not okay with staying, then tell your players, hey, I will genuinely have a better time, and thus give you a better time as players, if I run the game that I want to run. That's all you got to say. And if your players refuse to accept that, then I don't know if they're exactly the kind of players that you want to run for, right? All the drama and corporate greed make me feel like how the underground man from Dostoevsky's novella wrote, "My liver is unhealthy, so let it degenerate more. I just want all to burn." Some men just want to watch the world burn, right? I'm looking at running AD&D 2nd Edition again for the first time in 20 years. Let's go! AD&D 2nd Edition. Woo! That's a blast from the literal past. Why do you think every other content creator keeps overlooking that part of the OGL? Haven't seen anyone talking about it. So what basically what just happened with us content creators is... some people are probably going to start talking about it very soon here, but ultimately, what's his face? D&D Shorts got reamed on Twitter, and so like a lot of us are being like, oh man, like, it turns out like some of the community will turn against us instead of like, because Wizards of the Coast put out their statement, and then some people trailed off and attacked D&D Shorts, so. A lot of the D&D YouTube people are being like, do I want to keep covering all this? I don't know. Yep, Trevor worked hard to get where he is now. I was lucky to be the first. Thank you, Lorander. Thank you. Archives of Nethys for the win. I think the good news is that Cobalt Press's Black Flag system is compatible with 5e. So I think a lot of people will go to them since they can bring their 5e content over to that. Yeah, I do suspect that that 5e clones are going to be popping up. And what is going to be really nice about those 5e clones is I sincerely hope that they go for different flavors of fantasy. Because, as mentioned before, the only real, like, big 5e clone would be specifically Shadow of the Demon Lord. But Shadow of the Demon Lord, unfortunately, doesn't go with a lot of people's, like, version of their fantasy, because Shadow of the Demon Lord is grimdark. So I'm really hoping that, like, I really hope that for the 5e clones, it's not just, like, generic fantasy, generic boring stuff, because I don't want more generic boring things. I want more flavor. I want more oomph. There are thousands of free RPG PDFs online at places like AnyFlip and Archive.org, so that's like millions of pages. True. I'm going to make the most offensive adventure module ever and not publish it under the OGL, but rather say it's a parody. I'm not really an offensive guy, though, so the best stuff I can think of is like Poopy Butt Cleric. So what I'll say, Conrad, is if you are into offensive, if you're looking for inspiration about what is truly deemed offensive adventure modules, then look no further than good old-fashioned Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Lamentations of the Flame Princess is an OSR game system like many others. It's got your standard affair of you've got the fighter and you've got the magic user, you've got the cleric, the dwarf is a dwarf, the elf is an elf, etc. Except for two things that make it stand out a little bit. One is it does highly embrace, specifically like kind of more of a like a 15th, 16th century human vibe. Like it's kind of set in our world, except that there's dwarves and elves running around. But two, and far more importantly, when it comes to this, is the people that write adventure modules for this game system oftentimes make highly offensive adventure modules. And when I say highly offensive, I'm not talking about them naming things like Poopy Butt Clerics. I'm talking about things that basically, trying to think of the best way to describe it. Oftentimes in the adventures, there may be things that involve, let's say, dead people doing, not so great things, and things with children, and things with, what wealthy, landowners would do during that era of time, right? Usually that's the kind of like offensive stuff they're going for. So if you're looking for some of that, then check some of the Lamentations of the Flame Princess stuff out. You're talking about stuff like the end of Berserk. Kinda. Kinda. It's, man, I love Berserk so much. Gosh dang it. I love Berserk so much. It's one of the most beautiful mangas ever written of all time in human existence. It's so good. Oh, I love Berserk. I've come to find that people obsessed with being offended, that is impossible not to offend them. Best just not to try. I mean, like I mentioned with the whole what they deem offensive thing, basically, Wizards of the Coast, I promise you, won't typically go after, like, I'm willing to bet that they more go after content creators versus the content itself. Just play Paranoia. Paranoia is awesome, though I will say the Paranoia is one of the funnest tabletop role-playing games that you need to not talk about. Because the more you talk about that game, the worse it is. It is truly a game where your players should not know the rules, and you should just spring it up on them, and then they should just play it. And that's all I'm going to say on the matter. I'll tell you what's offensive. Pesky adventures. Yeah. Curse you. I love Acerex so much. He's Serac is just, I love Serac so much. I've ran Tomb of Annihilation 3 times now, and now I had already planned on running Tomb of Annihilation again using a different game system, but I'm definitely going to use a different game system now. So the next time I run Tomb of Annihilation, I'm going to be using either Dungeon Crawl Classics, Old School Adventures, or something else. Or maybe Adventures of Astonishing Swords and Hyperborea, maybe. But I'm definitely going to be running Tomb of Annihilation again, using a different game system, and it's going to be drastically different. Even though it's this, I'm going to be using the same map. I'm going to be using, basically the same air quote rules and whatnot. It's just going to be a different game system. But the difference in game system is going to make it so different and yet awesome. I'm going to freaking love it. Agreed on Berserk. Great to hear you're also a fan. Thanks for the tip on Lamentations of the Flame Princess. I'll definitely check it out. So what I'll say is the Lamentations of the Flame Princess game system, nothing about the game system itself is offensive. What I really like in particular is in regards of OSR content. One, the gun rules are awesome, right? The gun rules are freaking great. There's basically a whole bunch of gun rules about, oh, hey, a gun, you can reload it this quickly, and it's dependent on certain modifiers and your class level and da-da-da, so-and-so. And there's a whole bunch of different guns, and depending on the level of technology you have. So the gun mechanics are some of the best in the OSR. And secondly, I really love the thief, because the thief in OSR is typically presented as, oh, hey, as a thief, you suck at everything in the beginning. You can barely climb walls. You can barely pickpocket. You can barely, hide in the shadows, right? But what I really like about the thief in Lamentations of the Flame Princess, it's one, not called a thief, but it is, what's really cool about it is you basically get to put your points into different aspects of what you're good at. So, it's a really, really cool thing of I'm the kind of thief that's good at scaling walls, and then you bump that up. Oh, I'm the kind of thief that's really good at backstabbing. I'll bump that up, kind of thing. Serac rules. A bit off topic, but do you ever plan to make a game series of running a module on the channel? So, Cloudy, I have sincerely thought about this, right? I certainly will. There's not a shadow of a doubt that I will be recording or streaming some adventures that I'm running. There's no question about that. But the question is where's it going to go? Is it going to go on my main channel? Am I going to create a separate channel for that? That I don't know. But I absolutely will record running adventures. Absolutely. Isn't the Ace in TOA a simulacrum? I'm not going to spoil anything about anything. How does one get into one of your games? Playing TOA with you as a DM sounds awesome. I'll be making posts about it. As mentioned earlier in the stream, I will be running a bunch of games, not this coming week because of the 23rd to the 27th, because I'm going to have a tooth pulled and I'm probably going to be all jacked up. But the week afterwards, so January 30th through February, whatever, I'm going to be running a bunch of one-shots in my Discord. I'll be making a video about that. I'll be posting in my Discord. I'll be posting a bunch. I'm going to be running a bunch of little one-shots about carnivals. And at some point in the future, I will be, asking. I'll be putting up a post about running TOA, and I'm like 80% certain that I'm going to be running Tomb of Annihilation using Old School Essentials. So, I know that's going to steer some people off, because I know some people really want to play 5e or whatever, but. I'm personally, I really want to run TOA using Old School Essentials, keeping it classic, keeping it old school. So definitely stay tuned in the Discord and on my channel to check all that out. I haven't decided, but I have it narrowed down to Labyrinth Lore, DCC, D&D 2nd Edition, and Swords and Sorcery. In regards of what exactly? Your favorite OSR system? What I will say is, if this is specifically for an OSR system, DCC technically isn't OSR. Technically, it's DC is like the most OSR adjacent system because it's technically taken off of 3rd edition. It's basically DCC is really weird because it's definitely not, it's definitely not 1st and 2nd edition of D&D, but it's not 3rd either, but it's technically somewhat 3rd. It's weird. What system I'm going to run that is? What I will say is just run all of them, right? Just run all of them. Have Critical Role said anything about all this D&D drama? So, Lorinder, they have not. They haven't said anything of importance. What they did do, though, Lorinder, is they put up a post saying that we support third-party content creators. And it was this big old long, it was like a 3-paragraph statement that they put out. But in essence, it was a nothing burger. And that I completely understand because if you don't know, Critical Role is sponsored by D&D Beyond. So I'm more than willing to bet that Critical Role probably has some sort of NDA or some clause saying that they can't say or do certain things. I'm willing to bet that's the case. So it would make sense to me that Wizards of the Coast would not outright say D&D bad, Wizards of the Coast bad. What it would make sense to me is Wizards of the Coast putting out a nothing burger statement that says we support third-party content creators. That would make sense to me. That's led to a bunch of speculation from myself and several other D&D YouTubers, is that Critical Role in the future may put out their own tabletop role-playing game system. And what we were actually super speculating is they may do that after, what do you call that thing? After, what's the TV show? Stranger Things. Because when Stranger Things seasons come out, the spike of people doing searching for D&D shoots up immensely. And obviously Critical Role benefits off of that. And, basically everything D&D content related, benefits off of that. So a lot of us were speculating that that Critical Role may, after Stranger Things ends, may decide to, with their own thing, Darrington Press, they may decide to put out their own tabletop role-playing game system. And then, of course, they would be showcasing it off with their own, most watched D&D show ever. And so, maybe D&D or Wizards of the Coast would be sweating. Most offensive games you will ever experience is with Trevor just has Stan and console. Exactly. What system I am going to run, that is. Yeah, so what I'll say is, specifically in regards of the difference between... What I'll say is DCC is far different than the rest of those three. Labyrinth Lord and Swords and Sorcery being very, very close together. D&D 2nd edition being, just having a bit more attached to it. Labyrinth Lord and Swords and Sorcery, incredibly close. Just minor differences between the two. D&D 2nd edition having an incredible, insane amount of wealth behind it in regards of how much content was created for 2nd edition. There are just heaps and tropes and just absolute mounds and piles of books for 2nd edition. In regards to DCC, DCC is its own unique thing. It's goofy, it's wacky, it's weird. Whole bunch of, crazy magics, and also very importantly is a whole bunch of fun adventure modules tied to it. Though DCC, you could easily run other OSR game systems and use DCC. It's going to get a little bit weird with the magic, of course, but yeah, it'll work. Who's your favorite D&D NPC? That might be Meepo the Kobold. Meepo the Kobold is a great tester of basically like a group's, just their commitment. It's a great test of their desires, of their play styles. I think Meepo the Kobold is just really fascinating because Meepo can go on to do great things, or more importantly, Meepo can just get wiped out in 2 seconds. Meepo can be so many different things to so many different tables. I really like Meepo. I'd love to run them all and find out. My old brain doesn't absorb new rules as fast as it used to, lol. So what I'll say is, thankfully, you're not learning much, right? Thankfully, you are genuinely not learning much in regards of Labyrinth of Lord, Swords and Sorcery, and D&D 2nd Edition. Like, if you play 5e, then basically you're shaving off a bunch of, obtusiveness, and then you basically get those systems. DCC, very much so in that same regard of you, like, the only thing you're really learning is, like telling your players when to roll for their magic, and then basically just dealing with the ramifications of the magic, or dealing with, oh hey, they get new wacky weird magic items or whatever. So you're not a lot of the air quote rules that you're learning is actually a little bit more player facing, because as players are expected to learn a bunch of things on how to play their class, so you don't need to. Like, you don't need to learn how the class plays if they learn it themselves, right? They learn, okay, as a fighter, I get to roll a D3 and add it to my attack roll and damage roll. Cool. Okay, good job, fighter. Alrighty, halfling, basically, yeah, when you go to attack, roll D16s because you're dual wielding. Like, once they learn that, they're good. Vox Machina Season 2 airs in less than 6 hours. Heck yeah. I was pretty pumped about the first season. Like, it was good animation. They air quote retold the adventure that they were doing, which is fine. They're obviously, one thing that's really, really cute is, they totally have retconned their campaign because they completely removed Tiberius from everything because they didn't want to deal with that nonsense. But what's really nice is, like, there was an episode in particular that, like, basically the episode really correlated well with the actual show. And what's really nice is, in the show, it's a 24-minute episode show or whatever, versus when you watch the actual Critical Role, it's 4 hours. But it's 4 hours because the combat's so freaking long. So it's so nice to watch the Vox Machina TV show, because instead of combat dragging on for 1 to 2 hours, you instead all of a sudden, boom, get that sweet instant gratification of, bullets flying or someone getting their head cut off or whatever. So nice, so simplistic. Pathfinder 2e? So here's the thing. I'm not against Pathfinder 2e. It's just that I'm not for Pathfinder 2e because I'm not for more modern systems. Like, I jumped into D&D 5e because, that's basically how I got into tabletop role-playing games. But having played modern systems for so long now, I'm more enamored with, more retro systems. More simple systems, less chunky systems. I don't need to, like, sift through 300 different feats to make my character, right? All I want to do is just roll some dice and get on with the adventure. I love DCC's random magic tables. I love them too. Like, for me, one of the major problems with Magic is Magic doesn't feel magical to me. I actually made a post about this on YouTube. But the problem with Magic for me is when you codify magic, it no longer feels magical for me. When you know for a fact that your magic will absolutely do this thing without fail, without question, and it will do whatever. It feels like science to me, right? Like a firebolt doing a D10 of damage, and I know for a fact that I can hit someone within 120 feet. It doesn't feel like a firebolt anymore. For me, it feels like a gun. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, mechanically, it pretty much is, right? But then using DCC, when you cast, whatever, let's do Scorching Ray, for example. Scorching Ray in Dungeons and Dragons, you shoot three, whatevers, three little motes that do 2d6 fire damage. But in Dungeon Crawl Classics, when you cast that spell, it could be a bunch of things. Maybe you only shoot one ray that hits one person. Maybe you shoot 3 rays that hit 3 people, and maybe they each do 2d6 damage. Or maybe you shoot 5 rays that do 5d6 damage. That could be all over the place. And I like that the magic feels magical to me. Let's all play Pathfinder 2. Stick it to the D&D man. Do you prefer your psionics sandwich to be ham or cheese or pimento cheese? Psionics, huh? Psionics have a history in D&D, and what I'll say is I'm not against them at all whatsoever, specifically because I also really, really like Dark Sun as well. But I can understand why psionics didn't pan out in 5e, because psionics were essentially just a free gimmick that some characters got if they were blessed with rolling good enough in character creation. But the thing to consider is, in older editions of D&D, you barely got any features anywhere in your character sheet. So if you got like 1 or 2 extra features at character creation, like, whoa, that's huge. But in 5e, you get so many character features and options between your class and race and subclass and the feats and so-and-so, that adding more to that through psionics, I don't know if that would have been the good play. Have you tried John Harper Blades in the Dark? I have not personally touched Blades in the Dark. Not personally. I have looked at it. I have seen it played from afar. And by afar, I mean, like, I was in, like, I saw a game of it played. But I have not personally played it myself. Me, personally, I do not think that Blades in the Dark is the kind of game that I personally would like. I think it's a bit too freeform sometimes. But I wouldn't be opposed to trying it out. Pathfinder 1E is 3.5. What I'll say is Pathfinder 1E is D&D 3.75 edition, is what I'll say. Yeah, one thing I don't like with a lot of the recent stuff Wizards publishing for 5e is that there are so many player options but nothing for DMs. What gives? Here's what gives, Conrad. You have 5 players at the table. 5 players. You've got the 4 players, and then you got the DM. I make a thing of content to sell to someone. Am I going to try to sell 1 person? Or do I try to sell to 4 people? You sell to 4 people. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to, is there's more players than DMs, so try and sell to the majority of people. Not a gun, a rocket launcher. I had a lot of good games with Pathfinder 1E. Yeah, so funnily enough, I've never gotten Pathfinder to the table. I did play D&D 3rd edition, but I have not gotten Pathfinder to the table yet. Yeah, but as the DM, I'm the one buying all the stuff. So what I think it is I think I saw some sort of metric on what's being bought. And Conrad, per example of this, is the adventure modules. It is suspected that only 50% of the people that play 5e play the adventure modules. Right? And So D&D, what they're admitting there is they make a product, and like, going back to the metric thing, we saw that 40 million people play D&D. Only 1/5 of those is a DM. So cut 40 million down to whatever. And then you cut another 50% that play official modules. And then you cut that down to, and then how many of them get every single one of the adventure modules. You basically start shaving off a lot of numbers, right? Same thing could be applied to the player content versus DM content stuff, like the Xanathars and the Tasha's Cauldron of everything, right? You could sit there and be like, okay, we got 40 million people playing. How many people buy the books already? Before, how many players are willing to buy books? Okay, so and so, and then they do the math on it, and it's like, I'm willing to bet. Like, I haven't personally seen the numbers because I don't know if they're public, but I'm willing to bet that they probably make their money's worth off of creating those player supplement books. Not once have my players offered to pay me back for all the stuff I bought for us to play. Lol. It sounds like you need to start charging your players. That's what it sounds like. They need to pay the pizza tax. They either need to pay the pizza tax or they need to, all go in on buying an adventure module. They need to do something. Because something to consider is, like, let's say you run one of the 5e adventure modules and you get it for $30, right? If you have 4 players and they each put down if they each put down $7.50, right? Everybody just puts down $7.50. You get the adventure module for $30. They only paid $7.50 for untold hours of entertainment, right? That's a good investment right there. You need to start implementing the pizza tax there. Blaze in the Dark has a feature where you encounter a situation, then roll to decide if you prepared for it earlier than the day. I can't get into roll to retcon mechanics. It just feels wrong somehow. So what I'll say is, from my perceptions of Blaze in the Dark, it is very much so going for a TV show style of approach, where in a TV show, we fast forward to the cops breaking down the doors, and then all of a sudden, then the bad guy is like, "Oh, how'd you find out?" And then the cop is like, "Well, wouldn't you know? I did do." That, but if you're playing that in D&D, that would be the players being like, "Okay, we learned this clue, and then we talked to this person, and now we go bust down the door." Right? So like Blades in the Dark, I feel like is going for that TV style of approach, which, if you want to just cut corners real quick, I think that's a good way to go about it. But, how would you go about convincing your players in playing another system, especially OSR? So, Prime and DKO. This goes for literally any game system at all whatsoever, not just specifically OSR, but literally any, well, not that OSR is a game system, but literally any game system at all whatsoever. You earnestly talk to your players and tell them this. Hey gang, I've had fun with our current game system, but I personally would prefer if we move to another game system that facilitates a grander and fun time for myself, which will in turn be a fantastic and grand time for you as well. If you earnestly and honestly talk to your players in saying, hey, I am going to run another game system, and they tell you no, that basically, what that tells me is they care more about the game system than they care about you, right? Like, if I show up to a table, I'm showing up to a table not for the game system, right? I'm showing up for more of a... I'm showing up for the experience, right? I'm showing up for the DM. So I'd be very much so go down the route of saying, hey, I personally would have a much more enjoyable experience if we did this, and I know for a fact you all will as well. Let's just take the leap. What is that chair shot t-shirt? This actually, a funny story about this t-shirt. This t-shirt I got at a wedding. It was the wedding. My someone I knew had a wedding, and basically they were marrying a British person to keep him in the U.S. because his green card is running out. So it was a sham marriage, but whatever. And the guy was really into wrestling. So as part of the after party as part of the after party shenanigans, there was like an inflatable castle and whatever, and there was like a event where we put like we put a suitcase up in like hanging from a tree, kind of like the suitcase in the cage thing, and this was one of the prizes, and I got one of the t-shirts there. So I never really think about it when I put this shirt on, but then like whenever anyone asks me of it, it's like, oh yeah, I got this from a sham marriage. Kind of funny. I love trying other systems, but I always have D&D as my TTRPG home to come back to. I'm not giving Wizards any money until they make the irrevocable OGL 1.0A and own up to their lies. But my main concern is that I have a lot of new players in my group, and I'm afraid I would lose them if I move to another system. Once again, I would say, I would tell you, you shouldn't, right? Like, if you have new players to the hobby, once again, I'll tell you this, like, 5e is not the best tabletop role-playing game system out there for new players. It is not. There is a lot of rules. It's very thick. It's very dense. There's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of things moving on. Character creation, like, here's the fact of the matter. How long does it take you to tell someone to, create a character, right? Like, it takes a long time to create a character. It takes a long time to be like, okay, so, that's that, and da-da-da. Oh, and if you take this feat, and, if you want to do this, then maybe you'll choose that, then, like, there's a lot of, like, discussion to be had there. So, what I'll say is 5e is not the go-to for new players. That being said, though, if you have new players and they are enamored with 5e, ask them why they are enamored with 5e, and basically convince them, hey, we can get something better if we go to another game system. Do you want more crunch? Let's move to Pathfinder. Do you want just simplicity for simplicity's sake? Old school essentials. Do you want sci-fi? Let's go to Mothership. Do you want so-and-so? You can go in so many various directions. It doesn't have to just be generic, the 5e is the only ifs, ands, or buts, right? Just tell them, hey, there's a fantastic world out there. 5e might be how you get your foot in the door, but I promise you, once you step inside and look around, there's so many doors leading to so many avenues of different adventure, you can just go all over. I started a campaign of 5e with OSR homebrew rules. They said they wanted to play that way. Eventually, they complained every rule away. And we were playing vanilla 5e when they felt too powerful. Wait, so they complained the OSR rules away? Oh, no. Then they felt too powerful. Oh, I see. So what I'll say is 5e natively is a game where you don a cape and fly, right? 5e is very much so a game where you are powerful because you are designed to be powerful. My most recent 5e campaign that I ran, I had everybody roll 3d6 for their stats down the line. And even though people had like some terrible stats overall, they were still powerful. They were well above the curve. Well above. Spells are ridiculously powerful. People get a ton of health. the number of features and options and traits and abilities, and also very importantly is just the rest system as a whole. It is so incredibly powerful in 5e. You still watch Seth Skorkowski? I certainly do. I certainly watch Seth Skorkowski. I haven't watched his newest video on. I think he made a video on, what was it, Colt, or oh my gosh, I haven't gotten around to watching that yet. Yeah, he made a video on Colt. I haven't watched it yet, but I need to. Yeah, they all fell in love with their characters and didn't want to die. So what I would ask them is, I would very much so in earnest, I would say, hey players, you want to play a game where you love your characters and they don't die. What is the purpose of me sending threats your way if you're never going to die? Because ultimately, the goal of 5e is to be awesome and epic and heroic and whatnot. But then that's juxtaposed against the potential of dying. If there is literally no threat at all whatsoever of dying, then what is the point of combat? If no one is ever going to die, then why are we running a combat simulation? Right? Once again, there are better tabletop role-playing games for that, right? There are fantastic tabletop role-playing games where you don't have, you wouldn't even consider like people dying as a thing, because that's not the aim of the game. What is the aim of the game? That's something that you'd have to drift speed. That's something that you'd have to ask your players and yourself. Like, what are you trying to get out of the game? Are we just trying to roleplay characters? Do we need to do it using this? Do we need to have combat? Do we need to have this kind of adventure? Do we need to, genuinely ask the question, like, what are we trying to get out of this thing here? Because if I'm running a game and, and death is completely off the table, then one, I may not run 5e. But even if I do run 5e, it's not going to be a combat-oriented game at all whatsoever. There's going to be, like, next to no combat, in fact. Which I have ran. I've ran some non-combat 5e games, and they're fine, right? But, like, we could be doing something else, you know what I'm saying? Geez, I'm happy to play with players who like their characters but are okay with dying. Yeah, something I always tell all my players when they show up to my table is, if your character lives, that is due to, you being good, right? Like, if your character lives, that's a combination of good dice rolls and good tactics on your part. And if your character could die, if you have a combination of bad dice rolls and bad tactics, right? Just tell them to write a book about their characters then. That's, so I maybe some people do. I've killed 3 characters in the last year. One guy died in Argenvost in January this year is my latest death. Play Call of Cthulhu with them and they quickly learn about dying. Call of Cthulhu is a great example, right? Call of Cthulhu, you can actually run a relatively great game of Call of Cthulhu where nobody dies, right? Like, you can run a game where, like, it is truly about just, like, being an investigator, because you don't technically need the mythos at all. But if you do include the mythos, or you do include, let's say, like, gangs with guns or whatever, right? Then PCs are going to be dying, because life is harsh in Call of Cthulhu. Your HP pool is muy pequeño. Oh, goodness gracious sakes alive. But, regardless of whatever the outcome is of the OGL fiasco here, I mean, I think overall it is going to be healthier for the tabletop role-playing game community as a whole. I think a lot of companies after this are never going to try and pull a stunt like this ever again. Maybe Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast does keep on trying to pull it off. Just keep on doing it more subtle and more subtle until people, kind of just forget about it or whatever. But I think the fact that several game designers, companies, and even D&D content creators like YouTubers, whatever, because they're so up there on creating their own licenses and creating their own game systems, I think we're going to get some fantastic stuff out of this. 3d6 down the line, roll for HP, and death at 0, hard to get attached to a level 1 PC. There was the common trope back in the day that doing that method, you wouldn't name a character until they leveled up. They would just be a straight up nameless, loser until they earned a level up, right? But what I will say is, for as deathly and dangerous as that seems, you have terrible stats and you roll for your HP and you die at 0, you approach the game so vastly different, right? Like, I've been watching a run through of Arden Vul, a huge mega dungeon, and they're using old school essentials, and they don't have death at 0, but what they do have is they have like a death and dying mechanic. But just running old school gaming, those people are like, the players are approaching every situation with absolute, just absolutely, fear for their lives. They hear something down the corridor, they run away. They open a door and then they see they see something, they quickly close the door and run away, kind of thing, right? And that's the way it should be, right? Like, do you want your game to be a combat simulator, or do you want your game to be, like war versus war sport kind of thing? Did they confirm the rumors that there will be an AI DM on 1D&D? In fact, Drift Speed, they deconfirmed it. They specifically stated that they are not doing that. But we know that is a bold-faced lie, because we know for a fact that every single gaming company out there is moving to AI things. I know AI gets thrown out, like the word AI gets thrown out a lot, by so many people and whatever, but what I'm here to tell you is every single thing that you touch now has been touched by AI, right? Your favorite D&D, your favorite content creators, whether that be YouTubers or, on TikTok or on, just whatever, they're using AI. They're using AI to assist in their writing or to assist in their prediction algorithms. In regards of gaming companies, they're using AIs to sift through feedback. They're using AIs to do, X, Y, and Z. And it is absolute. It would be mind-boggling if D&D, the veritable, the tabletop role-playing game system, because D&D is basically the Band-Aid of D&D, or of tabletop role-playing games. It's just synonymous with the brand. It'd be incomprehensible to me that they wouldn't be making an AI system to run games. Because it sounds like all of you guys are DMs, but something to remember is there's a lot of people out there that don't want to DM. There's a lot of people. I personally love DMing. In fact, and I wouldn't say I don't like playing, but I severely like DMing a lot more. What I will say is, it would be incomprehensible for them to not create an AI DM to encourage more people to play. Because if you create an AI DM and basically make it a video game, then there is untold millions of people that will hop into the game. So they're going to make the AI DM. There's no question about that. When I run Call, I always make the player create a backup character that they can put into play when the main dies or is disabled, and you don't need to stop playing. That's honestly a good way to go, because dying is ultimately the worst part of the game if you don't get to play, right? Not playing is not fun. I have my new players roll up 2 characters to start. Having a backup gives the expectation that they might need it. Exactly. That is the way. Is if something big and nasty runs at you, you run away, as it should be. AI does not really scare me. If it gets more people who cannot find groups into the game, it might be a good thing, which it will. Hi, me again. The campaign I'm running is Witchlight, and I used your guide to the campaign to help prep. I've been watching your guide since Lost Mine of Fendelver. You helped me become a better DM. Just saying thank you. No problem, Matthew. No problem. Thank you, thank you. To add, I ran your Icewind Dale guide. Love your tips. Thank you, KJ. Thank you. 3d6 down the line, roll for HP. It's interesting to watch my players get attached to their characters, trying to keep them alive and learning who they are through play. So that is ultimately, I've more and more absolutely removed backgrounds from my games. No backstories. No, you were this and that before the game. It is just straight up everything that the player character knows and the characters like hear and understand and feel is at the table. Because I truly love seeing the progression of these nobody nameless losers into people. First off, I really love that aspect. And also very importantly is I really love when the players and the characters are on the same page. And I also love when there's none of this, hey DM, because of that backstory that I drew up, it got the thing where, like, I want you to overcome the adversities in the game through what you've learned and gathered and shared and struggled with as a group. I don't want there to be I's and me's. I want there to be us and we's. I really like the us and we's. I do not like the I's and me's. Oh, goodness gracious sakes alive. What was I looking at? Oh, I was looking at this. There we go. I'll admit, I've been using GPT-3 to improve my descriptions to generate stat blocks for custom monsters. The end result is the same, but it cuts my prep time in half. It's quickly become invaluable. As I mentioned before, literally every major company and major influencer and content creator that you know interacts with AI in some way, shape, or form. Every single one of them. And from here on in, it's only going to get air quote worse. Like, basically, AI just simplifies life and just makes things easy. Yeah, rules loying with every possible thing. Backgrounds are like the last thing a desperate rules layer goes to. How would you compare DCC with OSRE? So, what I'll say is DCC is wacky. OSR, I assume you're meaning Old School Essentials. Old School Essentials is DCC wacky, Old School Essentials classic, DCC over the top, OSC level. Basically, DCC creates these goofy, wacky, weird situations that you never would have thought of through the game mechanics. And Old School Essentials creates awesome moments, not created through mechanics, but through player interaction and intervention. am halfway through Curse of Strahd and told the party last night that we will vote on what new system to play after they kill the big bad. But we are not changing systems mid-campaign. That's fair. There's a YouTube channel I follow, and let me take a look at this here. The YouTuber in question is, his name is Dungeon Musings, and he has been running a campaign in specifically A Night Below. A Night Below is a very classic Advanced Dungeons and Dragons module, and that guy, and he's been running it for 193 sessions. And it has changed game systems, I want to say 3 times. Yeah, so his game started originally in using AD&D 2nd edition. Then it changed to... Oh, no, it's touched 4th edition. It then became Pathfinder 2nd edition. And then now it is Castles and Crusades. So that guy has been running the same campaign, and it has now touched 4 different game systems. And I don't know how to feel about that. Like, I couldn't imagine, like, midway through a campaign, like, it'd be weird. It'd be really weird to, like, mid-campaign change game systems, but it is what it is. No matter what game I play moving forward, I will be doing character funnels. I dig the funnels, honestly. Like, they're a fantastic way of just setting up, hey, you're all peasants, you're all losers, you're all nobodies, and you go on this weird adventure, a bunch of people die, and the people that come out, those are adventurers. Those are the people that actually get the taste for adventure, and they go on to do epic things. Like, I dig that a lot. I would love to play an OSR version of TOA. I hope my schedule lines up. Absolutely. So, Lucas, I was either going to do it a number of ways. One of the ways I was planning on thinking of doing it is, one, just running a classic, oh, hey, everybody, show up at, Tuesday at, 4 o'clock or whatever, right? Or another way I could run Tomb of Annihilation is running it as a West Marches campaign. Basically, for those of you that are unfamiliar with a West Marches style game, at the start of a session, we go off on the adventure. At the end of the session, you're back in town. And I open this game up to the community. I say, hey, everybody, I'm going to be running a game on Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Who wants to play? And then some people show up. You go off on your adventure. You come back. And then I say, okay, I'm going to be running an adventure on Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Who wants to play? And maybe I'll get different people in. But even if it is, the same or different people, we're still inhabiting the same world. We're all adventuring on the same map. And, that'd be a good way to basically get people into the game that normally don't have the set schedule, right? That's increasingly a large problem in today's day and age, is there's a lot of people who do not have consistent schedules. And West Marches style of games are a fantastic way to, as a DM, run a bunch of games for a bunch of different players, and also as a player to play in games that normally you couldn't play. So maybe I'll do that. Maybe. We'll have to see. I'll figure that out in a little bit, like maybe in the next few weeks. I'll see like what's going on in my schedules and all that, and then maybe I'll get down to putting that out there, because I'm definitely running TOA using Old School Essentials asterisk. I'm like 80% sure I'm going to be running TOA using Old School Essentials or using Dungeon Crawl Classics, but I'll probably use it Old School Essentials. Makes life just simple, easy, awesome. Yeah, West Marches are attractive too. I'll stay tuned in Discord for sure. Absolutely. I'll make videos about it. I'll post up in the Discord. I'll do all that fun jazz. Man, I'm getting constantly blasted by the other D&D YouTubers, always like talking on the side of like, oh, what's going on with the SRD right now, and what's going on with the OGL, and what's legal and what's not legal, because we have a couple of lawyers, but like you can't do legal advice. They always have to do hashtag not legal advice kind of thing. So it's very interesting to like see like what's going on with legality of all this, and what's going on in regards of like viewer retentionship of all this OGL stuff, and it's been an absolute clown fiesta. That being said, some people have profited greatly off of it. In fact, one of the other YouTubers, Indestructible in particular, that guy, he went from, and not just Indestructible, but also, who else? Roll for Combat. Roll for Combat. Wow, that they were getting like, just a few views here and there and everywhere, but now they are, like, their live streams, they're live streaming right now, or they were live streaming right now, and they were getting like 2,000 or 3,000 people watching them at one time. So, and then Indestructible in particular, he like on average is getting like 100 to like 200 viewers, like when he live streams. Like that's pretty freaking good. So this OGL, ironically, like the OGL content covering it has profited some people, but I think that profit might be in the short run, because if they don't make D&D content anymore, then like the numbers might drop down. So it's very intriguing to see where it'll be very intriguing to see where this all plays out in the future. Oh. Good for those guys getting them views. Exactly. My numbers suck in particular because I've mentioned this like before on other live streams, but for those of you that don't know, YouTube wants you to cover the same thing over and over and over again. YouTube punishes you if you cover different content. And so what's really weird about my channel is I've got the 12,000 subs, but I don't have those subs for the consistent things. Like I've got some subs from Curse of Strahd, and then I've got some subs from Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and I get some subs from, so-and-so, so-and-so. And the problem with that is my subscribers are not watching my content regularly. Now, I personally don't have an issue with that, but YouTube does. YouTube sees that like if I get a subscriber and I make a video and then like the subscriber doesn't watch the video, they see that as a bad thing. They don't see the nuance of it in regards of like being a variety channel. Like that's not a good thing. Like you need to have like a consistency. You basically want all of your subscribers to keep watching your next video and your next video. So I unfortunately, I get screwed pretty heavily in that regard, but it is what it is. Don't shoot me over this, but to me it seems like Wizards walked back a lot of the most problematic stuff, so I see folks coming back to it. So what I'll say is I'm not going to shoot the messenger here. I fully suspect that a lot of people are going to, absolutely go back to D&D. The thing to consider is they haven't walked back everything. They haven't. And in fact, actually, they slipped in some things here and there and everywhere that are also bad. But for the most part, it's probably not going to matter for the average consumer. So, it is what it is. Folks are thinking about how Wizard of the Coast resources could be used for aggressive loring, but I think they'll just try to win people back with content building their online infrastructure. Yeah, I absolutely see, like, because I don't know if you remember, but they are working on their own virtual tabletop, and it's going to be like a 3D environment, kind of like a tabletop simulator thing or a Tailspire kind of thing. And once that gets up and running, I promise you that's going to attract a bejesus ton of people. Like, once they get that up and running and it's good, it will be like, people will just be flocking to it. Because people love those 3D environments. Because a lot of us have been using the same virtual tabletops that are just top downs, and those are boring. But if you get those 3D environments going, woo wee! Oh, goodness gracious. So many things you can do with that. So many aspects of the game. And also, very importantly, a lot of ways you can monetize that. Specifically, like, can you imagine, like, the VTT comes out and then it's got all these things, and then next month they come out with, oh hey, here's the Drow building pack. For $10 you get all these different Drow buildings. Oh hey, the next month, next up we got, oh hey, player character models. Look at all these new player character models. You can, for $10 you get all these new player character models. I promise you that's what it's gonna be. They're going to just be nickel and diming people with all these different packs and all these different, little subscription models here and there and everywhere. It's going to be ridiculous. I hope they don't do some silly price structure for it, but it looks like fun. Yeah, they're I don't know about silly, but they're going to monetize the bejesus out of it. They absolutely are. Like, it's going to come base with, like, X number of models, and it's going to come base with, like, X number of, like, buildings and prefabs and whatnot. But then eventually they're going to just start doling them out. Like, oh, you can buy what you want. Oh, hey, if you buy the weather setting, and you can make it more blizzardy, or you can make it more rainy or misty or whatever. And then also really, really big is, like, imagine, like, the 3D environment thing. Like, they're going to do, like, for the adventure modules, like, they're probably going to charge a premium for those things, right? Because, like, Strahd's Castle, using that 3D environment is going to be pretty dope, right? Drow Buildings Pack, that actually sounds pretty cool. I was thinking they would do something like pay $2 for a hat for your virtual mini. Yeah. Can't imagine using Wizards of the Coast 3D VTT. As a DM, I want simple, easy to use. I've gone from more complicated VTTs to simpler ones. Roll20, then Foundry, then Albert Rodeo, then above VTT. Yeah, I mean, I personally like simple too. Like, I care much more about, words than I do care about visuals. Like, I don't personally need to explore around a map. I don't personally need to have a flashy model. I personally don't need, when I cast a spell, to have a flashing light go off. I don't need that stuff. But I know for a fact that there's a bunch of people that like that stuff. I know for a fact. Hoo-wee. I really hope that I really hope when my tooth gets pulled it doesn't I recover quickly. Like, they didn't tell me how long it normally takes. I didn't ask. I probably should have asked, but oh well. Oh well. I just keep on seeing nonstop messages from the YouTube content creators about how they feel about this new OGL. In the history of, like, any company, has any company ever play tested a legal document? Has that ever happened? I genuinely don't know. Has any... I'm actually going to, I'm going to look that up. Has any company ever play tested a legal document? Is that a thing? I want to know. I need to ask some legal minds if that's a not a because I mean it doesn't sound like a standard practice, but I'm wondering if it's actually been done at all before. I want to know. Um, But what about you all? Do y'all have any burning questions, comments, concerns, gripes, moans, complaints about anything? Do any of y'all have anything y'all want to get off your chest? Is there anything at all? I want to know. Wait, that what has been done? Well, I'm curious to know if any like has anybody ever play tested a legal document? Like, is that a thing that's happened before? Like, there's no way it's common practice, but I'm wondering if it's actually legitimately been done before. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Oh, hoo-wee. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, not that I know of. Yeah, I mean, I never heard of that, but I'm not a legalese person, so I honestly couldn't tell you. I couldn't rightfully say. Alrighty. What else, people? What else? Though it could be thought of as drafting stage only with a bigger group. I mean, that's what I'm thinking, right? Like whenever you make a legal document, you're obviously like chilling with all the other legal homies. You know, you're usually doing that in like a little room or a cubicle or whatever. You're not doing it on the internet for hundreds of thousands of people to see. Typically not. And also, I'm curious, people. Do have any of y'all been keeping up with Dungeon 23? Have all of you all been keeping up with your Dungeon 23s? I have been making a room every single day. In fact, I might as well write up mine now, alongside all you dear viewers, because I suspected that because Dungeon 23 like was catching a ton of media in the late stages of 2022. And I suspected that a lot of people are probably just gonna like start and then give up on it. But I'm actually committed to doing it. Now, what I'm not gonna do is I'm like per the regular Dungeon 23 content, people are drawing the rooms, and every single month is going to be a new layer of the dungeon. What I'm gonna do is I'm just simply gonna write a room every single day. And by the end of the year, I will have 365 rooms. And I'm going to maybe I will make grab ones here and there and everywhere, but I'm not going to make a dungeon out of these. Out of like all of them. I'm not going to create that kind of mega dungeon. Oh man, I wanted to, but I can't with the 3 games I'm in along with my job. Ugh. Curse you, life getting in the way. So what I currently have, though, I do currently have somewhat of a theme going on. So my theme so far has been skulls, devils, and crystals. It's kind of been my theme so far. So, what I always do is, every single day, what I'll do is I'll write up the room description, and then I'll write up the name for the next day. So you're gonna see I'm gonna write whatever the room description of the Devil's Fireplace is, and then I'll write 20. It'll be so and so. I'll figure that out in a moment. So Devil's Fireplace. Let's see here. What is the Devil's Fireplace? I kind of had something in mind. On the a large devil's face dominates the west wall, its mouth agape and a roaring black and blue flame resides within. It is clearly observed that a small room lies behind the fire. What am I gonna put here? It's clear that a small room lies behind the fire. What am I gonna do here? Let's say this magical flame can be doused, but if no fire roars, but if no black and blue flame roars in the fireplace, the next humanoid to walk underneath it is bitten by the devil's stony teeth. Right there, really, like a really simple room. It's like a kind of I'm envisioning like this is like just a large room. Maybe I'm gonna have some pillars in this room too. Large pillars with devil art and iconography. Large pillars with devil art and iconography lay throughout the hall. Just jumped in. I was running a game. What's going on? We were just discussing, the OGL fiasco and what's going on with the future of me and all my content. And Richard, in a little bit, specifically in like 2 weeks or so, I'm going to be running some public games, so you can jump in for those. And currently, right this second, I'm writing up my today's room for Dungeon 23 challenge. So this room, basically, the pillars or whatever, there's the fireplace, If you douse the fire, then the thing bites you. But if no black and blue flame roars in the fireplace, the next humanoid to walk underneath it is bitten by the devil's stony teeth. If the fire is doused, it roars back to life in 1d6 rounds, let's say. How are you giving the PCs a clue they need to douse the fire? It's not. There's not going to be dousing the fire. What I'm going to say is, while the fire produces heat, it does, in fact, not burn anything at all. So here is a very incredibly simple puzzle. There's a fireplace right in front of you, roaring fire, clearly magical flames, and it gives off a heat. You put it out with some water, and then the next person that goes in all of a sudden gets bit. So, really simple. If you threw in literally anything else besides water, you would observe that it didn't burn. Simple as that. Is there anything else I want to put in this room? I mean, like, I'm keeping my, like, room descriptions, like, relatively simple. Like, I don't want to go into, like, I do not want this to be, like, I mean, for example, I'm on day number 19. I've only got 1,800 words, right? Like, I do not want to have, like, a room be, like, you know, boom, 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 you know, like this room takes a page to read. Cool. Could you have the faces of the victims of the devil on the pillar all leading to the devil's mouth that is about to bite them as a clue to getting beaten? Yeah, actually, I really dig that. With devil iconography lay throughout the hall. With many humanoid victims who are in the process of being eaten. Yeah, simple as that. Really simple room. It doesn't really need too much, you know, just like imagine like you go into this room, you see like this roaring fireplace, and like mind you the walls are stone, and like the rest of the dungeon has been like relatively like, you know, dark, but then this room's got this weird blue and black flame roaring, and you're looking around, it's all creepy. It's like, oh, what do you do? You know? If the PCs walk into a mouth without expecting to be bitten, it's on them. You know, that's the funny thing, right? Is like you need to give reward in order to incentivize strange play. So, you know, going all the way back to original D&D here, and I mean this is persisted all throughout, is the classic fountain in the dungeon. Under no circumstances in today's day and age, like, you know, let's say if like real human beings were thrown into a dank, creepy dungeon, no one would ever go and just drink some water from a random fountain. But back in the day, you would do so, and you should still do that to this day, because there should be the chance that something cool happens. If you drink the water from the fountain, your wisdom goes up by 1. Cool. Then like the next person drinks the next fountain. All right, the next person drinks from the next fountain, and they need to save, or their strength goes down by 4, kind of thing, right? You need to have the risk and reward there. You need to have the incentive there. You need to encourage people to do fun things. Like a simple, like, devil's maw that you traverse into. That right there, like, and simple. You know for a fact there's another room on like behind the fireplace. What's going to be in that room? Maybe there's treasure. Maybe you just get bitten when you walk in there. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's neither. Who knows? But there needs to be, you need to get your players to think of these things. And providing a dungeon like this, right? Providing a dungeon where there is the risk and reward and the incentive is a great way to get your players to do those fun things. Okay, what the heck did I just do? Why is this one so much bigger? Oh, my friggin' font went up for some dumb reason. Why'd the font go up? There we go. I was like, what? I don't want a nasty, ugly font. What? Why is the font getting all jacked up here? What's going on? Come on. There we go. I flipped a coin into a pool years ago and was rewarded with a wish. I always flip a coin into pools now. There you go. Like, simple things like that. Sometimes you flip a coin into a pool and you get a wish. Sometimes you flip a coin into a pool and a tentacle comes out and, strangles you. Like, there needs to be that fun reward, right? There needs to be something worthwhile. Okay, so far overall, in my Dungeon 23, we have the following. 7 Pillars of Pain, Crystal Wall, Skull Mouth, Crystal Shadows, Macabre Gallery, Dark Fountain, Shooting Skulls, Skull Pie, Spider Hollow, Moon Dial, Cold Crypt, Dark Well, Skull Cages, Dark Crystals, Skull Panels, Devil Diorama, Devil's Blades, Devil's Chest, Burial Niches, Devil's Fireplace. What is the next room that I'm going to write tomorrow? That's the real question. What's just a name a prompt that I can use for tomorrow? Let's go with... What's a name? Just a simple, easy name prompt for tomorrow's Dungeon 23. Man, I'm trying to think of what are the classics? What's just a classic thing? Oh, Spiral Staircase. In Spiral Staircase, I'll say that it's a 5 by... it's just 5 feet wide, 60 feet deep. There you go. Real simple. I remember that one shot you DM'd for us. It was like 8 players where we all controlled 4 PCs and died in droves. We somehow won. There you go. Do you remember which one that was? We'll check. Was that was it the that was the it was the fire one, right? The Beneath the Well of Brass, right? I want to say it was Beneath the Well of Brass. I wished for a pirate ship of my own. TPK happened at end of the session, and we all came back, and pirates, LOL, lucky my DM for that can roll with the punches. There you go. That's a great way to kick off a new character. It's like, whoa, you just inherited a new ship, Sounds like DCC. Yeah, because mind you, Killian, I've ran a bunch of one-shots for my community, and I'm going to be running some more one-shots in the future here. And I've ran a bunch of the DCC, 0th level one-shots. So, I want to say, yeah, Beneath the Well of Brass. You gave us all random PCs? Yeah. Yeah, I always, just keep it real simple there. Alrighty. That was Dungeon 23. Boop. Could you have the spiral staircase as a slide trap, perhaps having markers or colored steps, and if you step on the wrong step, you all slide down? I'll think about it, but I'll think about that tomorrow. Something very important about this design is I was thinking to myself, like, what if I just, like, cheat and I just, like, go a couple of days ahead? But what I really then thought about was I don't want to burn out. I want to just keep it real simple, devoting, like, literally, like, a few sentences, at most, like, 100 some odd words for each room description. Just makes it nice and casual. And I feel like if I get into, like, a writing habit of, like, trying to write too much, then I'll just burn out on it. So I'll think about that tomorrow. Maybe I'll, you guys are cool, so I'll let the cool people, all you cool people who are here, I'll let you get a little sneak peek at one of my works here. I'll reach you. I'll let you just want to see how cool this stuff is. So, welcome to. How do I show this off better? Nope. Can't do that. Notes. So, you all are witnessing the beginning of something fantastic. This is my adventure, Slay the Beast. So, Slay the Beast is a really simple concept. This is... I'll zoom out a little. This is a mega dungeon adventure where the concept is Beauty and the Beast, essentially. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. It is essentially Beauty and the Beast. Except this is, instead of, a tale of a woman getting kidnapped and then falling in love with the guy because she has that whatever Stockholm syndrome and because the guy's rich. No. This is a mega dungeon adventure. So with this adventure, basically the concept is simple. You are in the town, and when you kick off the campaign, someone discovers that there's a castle nearby, and you go to this castle, and you get to explore the castle grounds, and you get to explore the castle itself. And basically that's the adventure right there. But here is the major crutch of this is not in any way, shape, or form. This is no way like a simple single dungeon romp that you do. No. This is very much so. I'm going for a classic mega dungeon style where you basically make many, many expeditions from the town to the castle and back. You go to the castle, you retrieve some loot, you kill some baddies, you come back to town, you spend it all, you re-up, you rearm, you hire new hirelings, you get new gear, etc., etc. And so this adventure is all about basically this, this town and you developing this town and this castle that you're constantly going up against. And I'm relatively, not new to this. I've only got 3,000 words written down, but I'm going to have a lot more, let me tell you. I'm going to have a lot more. So, several themes I'm going to have with this adventure is, one, new magic item types, such as magical paintings, mirrors, and wigs. Wigs are going to be a really big like part of this because basically I'm having this be basically like a mock version of like a French town and a French castle in like a medieval setting. So absolutely wigs are going to be a big deal. And so like there's gonna be magical wigs, and you get these magical wigs, and it lets you do something cool, or maybe they're cursed, or they do whatever, right? There's gonna be black powder weapons. I'm gonna have all that. The magical paintings and magic mirrors. That's gonna be a big old fun thing in the castle and out of the castle. Mind you, for the and something very important I think is when it comes to mega dungeon play. A lot of people focus on the dungeon itself, but something very important is, for as cool as the dungeon is, the town needs to be cool as well, right? Like, you need to return back to a place that's worth going back to. You need to go back to a place filled with a bunch of NPCs that are fun to interact with. You need to have things to spend your money on. You need new, things. You need the town to be basically another character, right? Like you need the factions of the town to be exciting and worthwhile. You need it to truly feel like a home. And so that's what I've started working on writing first. So I've written up a bunch of the areas of the town. So I've got antiques, apothecary, bakery, barber, blacksmith, just et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and on. So I'm gonna have a bunch of those. I've been writing a little bit here and there and everywhere. And then I'm going to write up a bunch on specifically the people of the town. I haven't gotten to writing it yet, but I want a bunch of named NPCs to make this place feel cool. And then when it comes to the castle grounds itself, like the castle grounds is going to be an area to explore. The castle itself is going to be an area to explore. I want it to be just a fun, nice mega dungeon romp. And so I'm really looking forward to that. Gotten some writing in, but obviously got a lot more to go. But I've got several of the head staff written up here. Clocksworth, Candle Brava, Mrs. Pans, Madame Closet, Chef Broilder, Mrs. Gold Copper, so basically like the air quote bad guys of the campaign here in the castle, they are going to be like transformed, and they're either going to be like clockwork amalgamations, or they're going to be more plant-like or undead. There's going to be a whole bunch of nice little variations here. If you are having French aristocracy, then they use the paint tiny images like a harp, book on their cheeks to represent different things. Could you have them like temporary magic tattoos? Yeah, I was definitely thinking of that. Like basically, like in addition to the wigs, there'd also be like powdered like makeups that do something special as well. I was definitely leaning toward that. Kind of like how you recommend us to make Tin Towns likable with a home base for rhyme. Exactly, right? Exactly. So yeah, and one of the things I also wrote up a bunch is not the areas random encounter. So basically, I've got a bunch of like different monster types. So we're gonna have a bunch of wolves, spiders, animated objects, servants, plants, gargoyles, paintings, beastlings. Beastlings are basically gonna be like beast men kind of thing. Slimes, wax figures, and undead. And so I'm like figuring that all out right now. But and because I'm currently writing it for like old school essentials, but I'm gonna be like maybe adapting it to other game systems as well. But in regards of if your morale breaks, if you or your retainers morale breaks, then you basically like we'll roll on this table to see like what happens to them. They could get imprisoned in the dungeons, or they could be wounded and robbed. They could return back, whatever. Things like that. So I've definitely got a bunch of things cooking up with this, and I can't wait to write some more. But I want to save that till a little bit later. You know what I'm saying? But all you cool people watching and listening right now, y'all got a little sneak peek of my adventure to come. So, yeah. Oh. Alrighty, what the heck is going on over here? What the heck is going on over here? Bunch more people complaining about the OGL. Let's see what else. Morale check. What areas do you have in town? Let me pull that back up again. I currently have the following, which I'm probably going to add a little bit more here. So I currently have antiques, apothecary, and mind you, something, I'll get to this in a second here. Antiques, apothecary, bakery, barber, blacksmith, bookstore, butcher, candle maker, clothier, etiquette school. So one of the things I want to emphasize in this adventure is the indulgence of wealth. So basically, something to consider is if adventurers go off to like a dungeon, let's say, and they bring back a bunch of loot, the influx in gold is going to change the economy. And not just gold, but also if they retrieve back gems, or they retrieve back, items that, the adventurers sell back to the town or whatever. There's going to be an influx of things going on here. So in my adventure, there's going to be things that basically open up, like new businesses open up over the course of the adventure. So one of them is an etiquette school. This etiquette school will open up once a certain number of gold is brought back to the town. So I lost my train of thought there. But basically, over the course of the adventure, as people are bringing back the gold from the castle, more people are moving to this new bustling town because it's oh, hey, we heard, this town is getting an influx of gold. Maybe we can get in on it. So, etiquette school, farmhouse, fishery, Fletcher, fountain, guardhouse, guild house, herbalist, home appliances, hunter lodge, inn, inventor, jeweler, market, mayor's house, mirror maker, occult shop, pond, rifle house, schoolhouse, stable, tavern, trader, and wig shop. Those are currently the places I have listed so far. Did you have a baker to go with a butcher and candlestick maker? Opening up shops like blacksmith and alchemist, I dig the idea. Yeah, I mean, because I want to start off the adventure where it's a decent off town. I don't want it to be like a bustling city, but I want it to be it's a good thriving town. But I imagine by the end of the adventure it would be a city, because basically it's going off the classic Beauty and the Beast thing of there's a castle literally right next to this town, but everybody in the town's forgotten about it because of the magic. But now that people are remembering it, then remembering there's actually there was royalty right there, and all this gold from this castle is being brought back to this town. People from farther away are going to be oh, hey, let's move to town. Maybe we can get in on this good stuff. Does anyone else have a massive knowledge and love for D&D lore, and somehow it all feels wasted or tainted from the OGL situation? It is not wasted or tainted. Something to remember is Wizards of the Coast is not D&D. You are D&D, right? Like, they can't take away your knowledge. They can't take away your fun experiences. They can't take away your game. What I will say is they can take away your future investment in their product, but they cannot take away your game. Sounds exciting. I love animated and sentient objects in my games, like the brooms of the witches in Ravenloft. Absolutely. I love witches. Witches are, without a shadow of a doubt, like one of my most favorite, like, things. And they don't get enough love. I love your concept of using the influx of gold to change the economy and will be unapologetic in stealing of your idea. Yeah, I mean, like I said, like that's my idea. Basically, like it's a well-off town because this was like the town right next to the castle. Because presumably, like not presumably, but the family that that was like the royalty in the nearby settlement. Like this was their town, air quote. But now that but people forgot about it because of the magic. But now the town is all of a sudden gonna go from like being decent to like being really, really well off, and it's not gonna just attract normal business people, but it's also gonna attract other adventurers too. So like, for running old school games, that'll be a great way of explaining, oh, how do you get new retainers and torchbearers and things of that nature. And so, like, it's going to be a town, like, starts off with a certain population, but by the end of it, it's going to go a little bit further. Because I'm feeling extra generous for all y'all as well, I'll show you another project I'm working on. Because y'all are so cool. So here is my other project. The reverse dungeon hex crawl. So this one in particular is a reverse mega dungeon hex crawl. So basically, the idea behind this is at the start of the campaign, the players are teleported to the bottom of a dungeon because a nearby local sorcerer or wizard has basically constructed a large teleportation circle that teleports a ton of people to the bottom of this dungeon. And basically, like, hundreds of people are getting teleported to this, not just the PCs. But mind you, it's not all at once. It's like every few weeks, more people get teleported here. And so the whole campaign is presumably your players trying to make a living now at the bottom of this mega dungeon and trying to climb their way out of it. And so while my working title for this adventure is Way Down in Little Hope, and because the town, because there's already a thriving town down there because other people are getting teleported constantly over the past number of years. The town's called Little Hope. And for this, this one, I've gotten a bunch written down. I've got 12,000 words written so far. So I've got a lot written for this. This is a lot more concrete here. And this one is much, much further in the production line than my Beauty and the Beast adventure. That being said, though, I'm really liking both of them. They're hitting different things here. The Beauty and the Beast one's hitting on that just classic fun stuff. This one is hitting on that, more hardcore, I guess. So I've got a bunch of stuff. One thing I'm also going to port over into my other one is henchman quirks. When you hire a henchman, they might have something up with them. Like, they may, for example, be a drunkard. Or they may, have... they always stay in the back. They have a terrible cough. They're ugly. They know how to pick locks. They're clumsy. They're a known cheat. Things like that. So I'm definitely going to make one of those for that one as well. Got a bunch of wandering monsters. Got a bunch written for this. Oh my goodness. Rival adventuring parties. What is this? Random curios table. Adventure hooks. Got a bunch of stuff like that. Got a bunch written. Man, I've got so much written. And there's a little sneak peek preview of something I drew myself of the ground floor of the Hex dungeon there. And so I was currently working on floor 2, huh? Oh no, can I not click on that? What's up with that? Oh, there we go. Got a bunch stuff. Like I said, I'm already 12,000 words into this, and I've got a lot more to go. Besides RPGs like D&D, what other tabletop games do you play? By the way, I play the following: Old School Essentials, Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea, Call of Cthulhu, Mothership, Murkburg. Oh my gosh. Did I say Call of Cthulhu? I can't remember. Did I just say Call of Cthulhu? Yeah, I said Call of Cthulhu. So those are like 5 that I'm kind of running right now. Yeah. So Old School Essentials, Hyperborea, Cthulhu, Murkburg, and Dungeon Crawl Classics. And Mothership. So like 6 games I'm running right now. Has anyone played Paranoia RPG? It's a bit old school. Be wary though. So what I'll say is Paranoia is fantastic, but the less you know about the game, the better it is. And what is really crappy about that is like sometimes it's really hard to pitch to people because you just say, hey, just show up and play. But some people aren't down to do that, which really sucks. How would you let the players know that they probably won't make it in one go? I'd be afraid they would just try and die. Somehow my players don't like retreating. Well, for this adventure, I would just say, hey, you're obviously not the first people to show up to this town. Many people have tried. The dungeon, like, I'd say, like, hey, like, people suspect that the dungeon is like X number of floors big. In fact, I actually got a rumor table. Let me see if I can find it here. The rumor table here. Like they'd probably hear rumor and be like, oh, like other people have tried, but what makes you any better, right? After the first death, gave them an insight check. Very cool. I love Call of Cthulhu and Lovecraftian games. Have you tried Arkham Horror? I have not. I know I've heard nothing but good things about Arkham Horror, but I just have not tried it yet. But in regards of air quote teaching players to retreat, that's something that you can tell them, you can beat it over their head, but like they're gonna learn it either the easy way or the hard way. Like, for a classic Mega Dungeon style vibe, you don't ever clear the dungeon in one go. It's just not possible. So like you can't do it at level 1 because it's way too hard. So either they'll learn, okay, we go up, we get XP, we come back, you repeat it, repeat, or they'll go up, get themselves killed, and then go up and get themselves killed, player PC's number 2, and then PC's number 3, and eventually they'll learn, right? Eventually. I have 40 rumors. Golly, do I want to add any more? I don't know. Got a lot of rumors, though. I got a lot. What I do have a lot of, though, is, as I mentioned, like, basically, like, there's, like, a large teleportation circle that periodically teleports people. So what I have is in the campaign, every 1d6 weeks, you roll a d100 to see what gets teleported down to the bottom. And sometimes it'll be commoners. Sometimes it'll be 2d4 black bears. Sometimes it'll be a caravan of 1d6 traders and 3d10 guards. Sometimes it'll be a squad of 46 hobgoblins. Sometimes it'll be a group of 1d4 plus 1 wandering fledgling wizards, you know? And so like that right there, like it'll add a lot of variety of like oh hey, over the course of the campaign, like new people are showing up to the town, or sometimes monsters just show up and like now you've got monsters on the floor. Like, oh great, 2d10 Grix, you know, show up. Oh, hungry Hydra shows up. You know, like how do you deal with that, right? One of my favorites here: a group of 2d8 chained convicts. Imagine this, right? You're at the bottom of this dungeon. You've been teleported here. You're presumably trapped here forever and all the time because the only way to go up is by fighting a bunch of monsters. And then all of a sudden, you know, you get a bunch of chained convicts show up. Like, what do you do, right? Like, I like those moral quandaries. I gotta get going for dinner. It was nice hanging out with you again. Keep up the good work. Thank you, thank you. By the way, thanks for the advice on my Wild Beyond the Witchlight. I have done a point crawl. I have done a point crawl yet. For example, they gave a gift to not get robbed of their favorite experience. That will come back to bite them. I'd love to hang out more, but it's 2 o'clock in the night, and here your alarm goes off at 7. Thanks for the chat and your Chris Stroud videos. No problem, Killian. No problem. It's actually about time for me to go as well. I started streaming at like 2:40 some odd. So I've been streaming for a while now. So I think it's about time for me to wrap up. But all you cool people who got to see, you know, my workings that I've got going on, my cool stuff. You're working too much, man. Take a break once in a while. You hear? You know, that's the problem. Is I've got ideas and I need to get them down on paper. But yeah, I think that'll do it. You know, we had a fun stream here. We talked about a lot of fun things. So if anyone has any questions, comments, concerns, gripes, moans, or complaints, speak them now. Forever hold your peace, and I'll log off in 5 minutes. So the floor is yours. Does anyone have anything of any importance that they want to say at all whatsoever? I'm trying to remember what were the other fun things we were doing. Oh yeah. Imagine this, right? A carnival with a headmaster, 2d6 talent, 2d4 animals, and 8d6 workers. All of a sudden it gets teleported to the bottom of the dungeon, right? Like, golly, that's got to suck. Thank you. Good night. Thank you. Did you get paid for running your games? Not the public ones. I do pro DMing every once in a while. I'm not doing it currently. But occasionally I do paid DMing gigs. Not for example, in 2 weeks' time, on January 30th, I believe, I'm gonna be doing a week of public games, and those will not be paid. Those are just, you know, you just show up to play. But I have done paid DMing before, and I will do so in the future as well. It's not a bad gig. Oh, here's some of my favorites. A crazed knight leading 10d10 children on a crusade teleports to the bottom of a dungeon. Oh boy. What do you do about that, huh? Do they have an economy down there? You could have the entire contents of a bank's vault teleport down there. It's all useless. Yeah, so there is an economy down there because it's not just the people getting teleported down there, it's also their goods. So, you know, basically like, for example, because normal trees don't grow at the bottom of the dungeon, whenever someone new shows up to town, and let's say they were like carrying lumber, then they very well could, you know, sell that because presumably a lot of people would like that. And then, you know, what else is there? Like, you know, like there's an economy, it's flowing. Like there's like what I'll say is so like the town of Little Hope. So what I have it is when your players show up there, there's like 874 people there, but that number is going to grow over the course of the campaign, or and potentially deplete over the course of the campaign, depending on the course of actions, right? But absolutely there'd be an economy. People would absolutely be living and thriving there. There would absolutely be commerce and trade. They're like, not only through the things that are, gathered on the bottom floor of the dungeon and through the things teleported there, but also very importantly is when the players finally go up into the dungeon and bring things back down. That would also create some, trade as well. I'd love to play in one of your games. I will DM you on Discord if okay with you. Yeah. Like I said, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be posting all this on the Discord and on YouTube. So yeah, absolutely, I'm gonna be running a bunch of games, and I'll be posting all about that. Do you ever see yourself forgiving wizards? What could they do to ever earn a little to earn even a little trust? Um, Ultimately, I don't see. I could never ever forgive them, right? Because ultimately, this wasn't like a oops, we're sorry. This was a oops, you didn't like what we are trying to do, right? Like this whole OGL fiasco has straight up been Wizards saying, "Hey, we tried to like set this up and you guys, like didn't like that. Oh, like we're going to try and do everything to like we're going to keep on spitballing things until you all have something that's acceptable." And that's what they're doing right now is they put out that newest statement about the OGL, and it states that like, "Oh yeah, we can pull your content if we find it offensive. And by the way, we deem what's offensive." Like that also it does not sit well with me because, what the heck is offensive, right? Like to them, they could be like, "Oh hey, your name is no fun allowed. That implies that you restrict fun, and we find that offensive, right?" Like they could do that, right? So I genuinely don't see myself ever forgiving wizards. I just don't. I wouldn't look too much into it at the moment as they made a belly flop and we'll have to fix it. Yeah, this was a belly flop. This was bad. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't see myself forgiving them because they've shown their true intentions. Is what I'll say. Is like this was not a oops. We made a mistake. This was a oops. You don't like what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? So they absolutely are earning out no sympathy from me at all whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. Alrighty. Any more questions, comments, concerns, gripes, moans, complaints? Any more? Any more? Anything and everything. Got 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes, people. 2 more minutes to say your piece. Two more. I think heads will roll and a massive backtrack will be done in the next 6 months. Oh, absolutely. My motto is never forgive, but also forget. But always forget. That's that's certainly my motto is never forgive, but always forget. I don't I was trying to think because like what's what's his face Sam from Sam Gamgee from Lord of the Rings. He's like forgive and forget, forgive and forget. He says it all British sounding like them. Forgive and forget. I wasn't dropping no eaves, I swear. Alrighty. If you forget, then how do you know? That's kind of what I was thinking. That's kind of what I was thinking. Alrighty though, but that is absolutely gonna do it for me. You all got to all you lucky people. I don't remember exactly. All you got to witness a little bit of the stuff I'm working on coming out in the future. What that's coming out for, I don't know, but I doubt it's coming out for D&D product. It's probably coming out for a non OGL profit, but or product there. But that is absolutely going to do it for me. Thank you so very much for watching. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to my amazing patrons. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you all so very much. And I cannot wait to see you all in the next one.